It's not often that you meet a trailblazer who is not afraid to be first, who is not afraid to take on topics that the nations have to address. Today, I'm going to introduce to some and present to others Dr. Sharon Anderson. She is a compassionate and caring woman who has a heart for people, especially those in need. Her commitment to serving the community is unparalleled. It is known throughout the nation. She embraces vision, she puts legs to vision, and she ensures that it is carried out with precision and integrity. She works in tandem with community leaders, faith-based organizations, and community activists, both nationally and globally. Her unyielding spirit and positive energy compels her to work tirelessly on behalf of those who are disenfranchised. Her Harvard degree, her time as a pastor, her commitment to hard work, and her unwavering love for God makes her an unmatched vision. I present to some, I introduce to others, none other than Dr. Sharon Anderson.
And now, introducing your host for the second annual Emotional Civility Conference, Dr. Sharon Anderson.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Wherever you are joining me from, whether it be across the seas in the African diaspora, whether you're in Europe, whether you're in the United States, welcome to our second annual Emotional Civility Conference. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Sharon Anderson, and I am so excited to be here today. Today is National Emotional Civility Day. And what a better time and what a better day than to discuss an important concept that we are struggling with throughout this world. And that is the concept of emotional civility. In a time where civility seems to have vanished, the purpose of this conference today is to remind us of the powerful concept to not allow our emotions to control our speech or our conduct. Recently, I launched a book in 2021, Emotional Civility, the New Standard for Global Success. And it was designed to place at the forefront of our daily interactions the value of civil interaction that ultimately will bring peace and safety to our homes, our communities, and our nations. In 2020, the United States was on the brink of war with Iran. We witnessed two impeachment hearings. We endured a global pandemic, witnessed the most uncivil standard of communication in decades in the hallowed halls of Congress in the United States, culminating in an attempted insurrection and coup. And now, globally, we're dealing with the war in Ukraine and the issues that we're dealing with as it relates to why Russia would be invading and killing people for something that they want. And so this national day and this national conference could not come at a better time. We are in a constitutional continued crisis because of the lack of civility in our discourse. And we are now in international turmoil with the issues of humanity being tested on every side. John F. Kennedy said this, and it really resounded in my spirit for this conference today. So let us begin anew, remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness and sincerity is always subject to proof. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. Civility is more than courtesy in behavior and speech. And we know that civility costs nothing and buys everything. Civility is not a tactic or sentiment. And according to two, I'll call them the godparents of civility in the United States, Thomas Spath and Cassandra Stonke, the founders of the Institute for Civility in Government, they've told us that civility is claiming and caring for those who we believe need care. It's claiming and caring for one's identity, needs, and beliefs without degrading someone else's in the process. Our president, first president of the United States, George Washington, in his publication, Rules of Civility and Decent Behavior in Company and Conversation, offered an instruction that included every action done in company ought to be with some sign of respect to those that are present. We must, beloved, proceed with civility. And there is no doubt that we live in a world that constantly, and we're seeing it on the platform of this international stage now, constantly turns to violence over peace and incivility over civility. However, if there's one thing that our great leaders of change, and you're going to learn about some of them today, have shown, is that we are stronger together and we are stronger when we are kind. Incivility drives wedges through our society and through our nations that truly keeps us from achieving the full potential of this great human race. It prevents us from having an open mind and to all ideas, and maybe even the one that just may be the very change intended and needed to take our world by storm and make our world a better place. And so I am so honored to be here today and to not to just talk about my platform, but to share this platform and to award some of the most outstanding leaders that are in the conversation about civility and that are trying to create change for the world, trying to create a change for the world. And I'm so pleased to have them with me today. I prayed about who I would have and who I would award this year. And the first annual Civility Conference was phenomenal, but this one has just exceeded it by leaps and bounds. We have three tremendous individuals that have been on the battlefield for civility. And not only are they in the political arenas and the community arenas and the public arenas and the government arenas, attempting to change lives, but their own personal lives demonstrate the importance of civility. Civility in speech, bringing people together, making sure that our human race survives and changes this world. So I am so excited about the awardees that we're going to present to you today. And I'm so excited about the discussion that we're going to have about civility, the importance of civility in government, the importance of civility in conversation, the importance of civility in the African diaspora and in the public arena and in business. We have so much to talk about today. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for understanding the importance of civility in our lives. And now we're going to hear about the awardees, and then we're going to bring them on. Tremendous. So we're going to bring each one of them on, and then we're all going to come on and have a great discussion about civility. But I first want to introduce to you Dr. Sonia A. Robinson. Dr. Sonia Robinson is our International Civility Award winner and recipient, and I could not have thought of a better person to award to give this accolade to on this day. She is the founder of Conversations That Matters and is an experienced senior sales manager for a Fortune 500 company. She is an internationally acclaimed author, an international speaker, a coach, a mentor, and the founder and philosopher of the Conversations That Matters paradigm. Conversations That Matters has reached over 17 countries. She is the host of the Facebook live stream Conversation That Matters and embarked upon a new journey when she was awarded the Black Belt Speaker Sharing My Voice Award. She is the founder of the International Congress on Global Communications, and we are so excited to have her. This new paradigm that she's recently introduced into our world, making sure that we bring people together, is something that we've never seen before, and something that's going to cross lines of any barriers that we have as it relates to communications, international communications regarding civility. And so I'm going to bring Dr. Sonia on because she's going to talk to you about what ICGC means. I'm honored to be an executive board member with her. She's going to talk to you about why Conversations That Matters. She's going to talk to you about what it means to be an ambassador of civility and how releasing her first book in May of 2020, Conversation Mastery and Why It Matters, has changed the world and why she continues to fight internationally for civility for all. So, Dr. Sonia, I honor you. Congratulations. Thank you for being a recipient of this award and accepting this award. And please come on and tell us about who you are and why emotional civility matters.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I am pleased, I am honored, and I am humbled to accept this award and to join last year's recipients who I admire and respect. A very special thank you to Dr. Sharon Anderson and KCG Consulting Service for recognizing me. And I am extremely grateful for my coach and mentor, His Royal Highness Sir Clyde Rivers, for his guidance to make me better and reach my full potential. And an enormous salute to all of this year's nominees, each of whom made incredible contributions in their field of expertise. So I just wanted to share a little bit about me with you before, we get to the end. And as Dr. Sharon said, I work with a Fortune 500 company as a senior sales manager for 46 years, where I've helped shift the organization's policies and procedures related to sales and development. I've spearheaded cross-functional collaborations for enterprise-wide results all over the world. My one-team approach has revolutionized how businesses and governments communicate challenges and changes to power forward with driven results or focus. I just wanted to say I'm retiring very soon, and I'm happy about that. But then I will move on to what God has destined me to do. And I want to leave you with this. My motto is, the most successful teams recognize that everyone's contributions is important. Now, I'm the founder of Conversations That Matters, and that's a global initiative that I took on. It's dedicated to educating, informing, and uniting people on difficult topics. 2 years ago, I created a weekly broadcast to share my passion on a wider scale. This is what we need to do. We need to go back to the foundation because of life and certain circumstances, because of pain, because of family situations, because of words that have been spoken to us or over us. It has created you and it has created me. Because of life circumstances, people have told us what we need. They may not have said it to us with their mouth, but the messages that they've sent and how they've treated us. Our thoughts have been shaped concerning who we are. Based on pain, abuse, abandonment, rejection, being ignored, or we may have tried something once or twice and it failed, so we feel ourselves as being failures. We need to learn as much as we can as why we were created. Once we understand why we were created, then we need to operate in the real us, in the real you, in the real me. My job is to help you bridge the gap, the way you see yourself and the way God sees you, so they line up together. Because right now, there's a gap that needs to be tightened. Conversation That Matters has equipped audiences worldwide with practical tools to communicate both effectively and intentionally. Many people have empowered to deliver concise messages with understanding and a respect to engage all ages, cultures, generations, and social economic status. Now, last year, God started dealing with me on a deeper level concerning communication. I just saw so much that was wrong in the world. God's message to me was stand up, elevate, vision up. He said to paint the picture, a mental picture, a visual picture, reveal it and give it spiritual insight. I came up with a new concept called Conversations That Matter. Here's where we gain perspective on the dialogue divide in our world that is resulting from communication conflict. I have a team of 34 people, including myself, where we're working around the world, working to promote diverse and inclusive dialogue, resulting in civility for all. We're having those hard to have conversations addressing human rights for all people, not just a select few, but for everyone. We're impacting humanity through collaborative global communication. I feel by changing a person's thought, shifting their focus, changing their action, by doing something different, imagining something different, we can give them something different. It is time for something new. Now is the time for a paradigm shift to occur within the mind. Now is the time to work with the younger generation to prepare them for the future because they are our future. In order for this movement to go forward, we must remember trust is earned when actions meet words. Open communication is the only way we can effectively work together globally. And I want to applaud Dr. Anderson for her work with emotional civility. Very few people have considered the importance of emotionals in the realm of civility work. Emotional civility has to do with how we interact with one another and how we feel. It's a person's feeling. In the last few years, civility has been lacking and only gotten worse. It's to the point where civility has been thrown out the window since COVID-19. It appears to me, and this is to me, when the restrictions started occurring and people were homebound, the true biases or the foundation started to show what was always there hidden. We started seeing more disregard for basic etiquette, selfishness, violent behavior, immoral acts of discrimination and hate, and the way people interact with one another. The world became more divided than ever. In Dr. Sharon's current role as a woman of God, an attorney, an ambassador, she realized that something was lacking. This is why she developed a new paradigm of emotional civility. She felt we must manage our emotions when we interact with others for success in all areas of our lives. The meaning of life is to give life meaning. In order to make the world a better place, we need to go back to the basics. We need to return to our foundation. Treat people how we want to be treated. That's simple. The golden rule. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sonia. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think anyone watching can see why she is a recipient of this award. Her impact in this paradigm and in this conversation is vital to change. And we thank God for the work that she's doing, and we support her, and we'll continue to pray for her in the work that she's doing. She's assembled a global body of a team, a global team with different perspectives from different religions, from different walks of life, all so that we can emulate what we are preaching. And one thing that I applaud Dr. Sonia for is that she does not just preach it. She practices what she preaches. So as a leader in ICGC, She ensures that we are keeping the mantra of civility for all in front of us. She ensures that we consider every nation and particular issues in every nation, so that when we're talking about issues, we're not alienating people while we're explaining why civility is important. So thank you, Dr. Sonia, for your leadership. Thank you for bringing us together for change. Thank you for staying in the fight. Thank you for being such a phenomenal leader in this space. And congratulations to you again for our award. And we'll bring you back up to talk a little bit more about what emotional civility means. But thank you so much. We honor you today. So our next recipient is a young lady that I met just about a year ago. And Miss Elliott Thomas serves as the executive director of the Institute for Civility in Government. And Ms. Thomas is getting the Civility in Government Award, the Emotional Civility in Government Award. And in her role as the director of the Institute of Civility in Government, she aims to reduce polarization and cultural divisions of all kinds through educational programming, including civility workshops, congressional student forums, and student legislative seminars and trips to Washington, D.C., all in service of teaching values from different viewpoints and understanding the importance of civility in government and in our own lives, turning discussions into action and action into change. Now, Elliott Thomas is more than just the director of the Civility in Government, and you will see and hear that in a minute. She is a well-known organizational powerhouse, influencer, and experienced entrepreneurial leader with over 20 years of lived experience serving extensively for nonprofit, social enterprise, for-profit Fortune 500 companies, as well as local, state, and federal government agencies. And she's infused her role as the executive director for ICG, and she also sits on the Worldwide Civility Council, the Arab American Council, and YAP Politics Advisory Board. She volunteers as a diversity officer with Jog for Good Foundation, and so much more. So, Elia, thank you, and congratulations. Tell us about yourself and why you believe emotional civility is important today. We congratulate you and honor you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharon, my friend. Civility is not just a word we use, but a feeling, an emotion, an intention. We call upon that, and it calls upon our emotional intelligence and our self-awareness. Our ability to act with civility is deeply connected with our ability to understand our own emotions. And because understanding our own feelings will help us to recognize how we're feeling in real time and give us a greater ability to have empathy for others. And I really took this Emotional Civility Day to heart. And everyone I talked to today, as I was out in my community, I wore my Give Hope, Show Kindness buttons, and I handed a few of them out. And I really talked to people about civility. And then I went on to talk to them about Emotional Civility Day. And most of them asked me, what is civility and what is emotional civility? And so what I found out today was exactly what I'm finding in all of my talks and my daily work, is that people want to talk about what civility is, what they're supposed to do with it, and what it means to them. And, empathy is civility in spiritual design. It flows through us and is us. And I know for me, that is how I carry out my day. I am retired from the federal government after years of service. And my work with the Institute is really just a culmination of my life's work of being that civil sort of beacon in every room that I was ever in, not even knowing I was doing the work of civility. So I am a strong proponent and a passionate leader in this realm, simply because civility is significant and it's essential and it cements civilization. And I think we have a small understanding of what civility is. The greater people have a very small notion of what it is, and we tend to just kind of nod it off as that good manners, as we spoke about, and we all know here today, and for those of you joining us that don't, it goes so far beyond that. It goes beyond any of that. And civility has been wielded as a weapon historically to silent dissent, to repress political participation, to justify violence upon certain groups of people. And I strive in my work with ICG to liberate civility from that. And you'll hear me say liberate civility a lot. And I go into the world each day teaching how to use civility as a tool for change, not only in government. We are all feeling it. We talk a lot to local government that just don't know how to handle incivility that's happening, as Dr. Robinson alluded to as she spoke. It's just been amped up, and we hear the frustration, and the frustration, it's just in the realm of incivility constantly. So to use civility as a tool for change, not only for the betterment of our world at large, as I care deeply when we talk about civility, that we talk about the racial and socioeconomic equality that needs to happen around this talk. And something that we often forget, and this brings into the realm of emotional civility, and why emotional civility and the work Dr. Robinson is doing is so important, because our mental, our physical, and spiritual well-being suffer. And I think it's something we don't talk about enough, and it's something that I talk about all the time. So with the founding of Emotional Civility Day, my friend and brilliant colleague, Dr. Sharon, which I would be remiss if I didn't say, brings me great joy and is just a kindred spirit in the work that we do, in every conversation that we have, is just an igniter button. But in that, the founding of Emotional Civility Day, she has set a celebrated reminder, a call to action, and a proclamation that civility is not just a word we use, but a feeling, an emotion, an intention that we call upon. And I want to leave with just saying something that I really believe, and I want people to carry from this. Empathy and understanding one another is civility in spiritual design. And it does flow through us, and it is us. And we need to make sure, just as I was out in the community today, in many ways telling people what civility was. And let me just leave you with this. When I explained what civility was and what I did for work, people were astounded. And a lot of them said, oh, that makes sense, that's how you, because that's exactly how you are. But they gave them an understanding, and it sent them away really thinking about what civility meant. And as everyone left me today, I said, okay, now take a deep breath and really think about how you respond in your interactions today, okay? And they were all like, we will. And that's all we can really ask. And that's why I get up every day to share this work with the world. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless you. And like you said, we are kindred spirits. We connected the first moment we interacted through ICG, and we've committed to join forces together as sisters to continue to do this work. And I applaud the great work that you've already done. You are a powerhouse and an influencer, but you emanate civility through your voice, through your eyes, through your speech. And so it's not just a title for you. It truly is something that you embody and that you truly care about. And so I am honored to honor you today as our Emotional Civility and Government awardee. And thank you so much for receiving it. And we look forward to some further discussions later in the program. Thank you. Thank you. I'm just so excited about what Elia just said, because she really took emotional civility to heart. She actually texted me. I was in church today. Happy Emotional Civility Day. So before we bring on Dr. Shaw, I just want to remind the listeners who maybe haven't Googled it. I was laughing today because I made Wikipedia that emotional civility is truly important. And it really is just a microscope on civility. For scholars, it may very quickly be confused with emotional intelligence. For those working in the business world, and we're going to hear from Dr. Shaw in a minute, we've all heard the term and the study of emotional intelligence, or EQ or EI. And when I looked at this, and the Lord gave me emotional civility, he said it's not the same thing. And I teach emotional civility for government, for Department of Corrections, for DC government, Maryland government. And emotional intelligence is defined as one's ability to identify, assess, and controls one's emotions and the emotion of others and of other groups. And so I actually define emotional intelligence as something that's horizontal. I'm sorry, it's vertical. So when you're dealing with emotional intelligence and assessing emotional intelligence in the business world, you're looking at how you process your emotions, but you really don't look too much at how that emotion has an effect on someone else and how it can trickle into affecting other groups. When I defined emotional civility was a vertical view. So it's not just a vertical view, it's a horizontal view where once you process your emotion, then the question is, how are you going to interact with someone else? And the reason why we have issues with civility all across the globe is because we don't take time to assess, once I've processed a feeling, then how is that feeling going to affect someone else? As everyone said on the line, I'm an attorney. As an attorney, I was taught to be, especially a trial attorney, I was taught to be aggressive. And in the courtroom, I could cut people up on my cross-examination. And so firmness and aggressiveness were keys to purported success. And then I answered my call to preach. And as a pastor, I began to study and look at civility from even a spiritual perspective, and was drawn to write the book, Emotional Civility, the New Standard for Global Success, because we had to learn a different way about how to process our emotions, about how to define what strength was, about how to communicate with people that have different views and different values in a way that everyone could receive someone else. And so this day, Emotional Civility Day, and this conference was generated because it was lacking in not only in our country, but in our world. We celebrate oftentimes through social media, even in television shows, giving someone a piece of my mind. I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. I'm going to tell them how we feel. And incivility has become a standard that is ringing the halls of boardrooms, courtrooms, classrooms, homes, communities, and our globe. And we're at war because of incivility. So how we interact with each other, how we manage our emotions and our responses is critical, not only to the United States and our nation remaining great, it is critical to our progress as individuals, and it's critical to how we interact with people from across the globe. And if we were all transparent, we know that we're challenged in our everyday life, at period. Right. There's something that happens in our everyday life that challenges us and says, how am I going to process a particular piece of information? And then how am I going to respond to that information in an appropriate manner to teach an appropriate response to generations behind us? And so this is the day that I asked us all throughout the world to commit to handle our emotions in an appropriate way and respond with civility. And Dr. Manoj Shah is clearly a trailblazer, a forerunner, an example extraordinaire of how globally, internationally, we should practice civility at all levels, whether it's the government level, whether it's within our homes, whether it is in the boardroom. Dr. Shaw has been a trailblazer for civility in his life. He has over 45 years of work experience and is a recognized authority in transforming loss-making institutions, companies, and turning them into industry leaders and making them profitable. He's identified to stage historic comebacks in performance, employee engagement, stakeholder mobilization, including fundraising, investor buy-ins, and built sustainable business models. He's repaired broken morale and builds collaborative and innovative workforces that are pivotal to businesses and organizations. His leadership values, and hear me well, is performance turnaround, corporate culture change, team mentorship, strategic partnerships, crisis communication and management. We talked about fundraising mobilization and competitive marketing position. He was awarded the Heads of State Commendation from the President of Kenya for outstanding and selfless contributions to the community and welfare and leadership. He was awarded with an honorary doctorate of humanities by United Graduate College and awarded with Ambassador of Goodwill Award by the Lions Club International. He is someone that has just changed my life as it relates to how he interacts on a global footprint. And the Lord told me to award Dr. Shaw with his excellency, the Sir Clyde Rivers Award for Emotional Civility. Now, someone might say, well, who is His Excellency Sir Clyde Rivers? Dr. Rivers is the godfather of civility in our world. His organization, I Changed Nations, and his commitment to civility recently led him to be honored and coronated as the King of Development in Ghana. His work in the area of civility reaches no bounds, and many of us have been catapulted in this work simply because of Dr. Sir Clyde Rivers. His selflessness and making sure that people reach their destiny and reach their goals is something that I've actually never witnessed before. The selflessness of a human being who cares about whether or not you make it before he makes it is something that is rare in our earth. And because of his selflessness, God has seen fit to continue to elevate him on platforms after platform after platform, so we can ensure that we have global civility as our mantra. And so Dr. Manoj Shah is the first recipient of the Sir Clyde Rivers Emotional Civility Award. Dr. Rivers is my mentor in the space of civility. As Dr. Robinson said, he is her mentor and was part of our first annual Emotional Civility Award conference last year. And so, Dr. Shaw, we thank you for your commitment. We thank you for transforming people around the world. We thank you for being a passionate humanitarian. We thank you and congratulations, and we welcome you to the stage.
Happy Emotional Civility Day to all, and greetings from the continent of Africa. Thank you very much, Dr. Sharon Anderson and KGC Consults, for inviting me to the second annual Civility Conference and honoring me with this distinguished award. I highly appreciate you considering me worthy of this distinguished award. Like you, Dr. Sir Clyde Rivers has been my mentor and staunchest supporter in all the civility work that I have done over the last 3 decades. This first ever Sir Clyde Rivers Emotional Civility Award really means a lot to me. Over the last 3 decades, I have been working in the corporate field very, very strongly, and also in many local and international platforms promoting civility in many different aspects. I have also been very active on the Lions Club's international platform, working in over 30 countries in Africa. At the same time, I've also been avidly working with the St. John's Priory, located in Great Britain, Special Olympics, Kilimanjaro Blind Trust, amongst a few, and not to forget, I changed nations. I've also had the opportunity to work with many government and non governmental agencies to advocate for civility rights in many different spheres. I must also thank Dr. Sonia Robinson for giving me a unique opportunity to work with a team of over 34 dedicated leaders to be the voices of civility in the world. And just to share with all of you a quote: civility is not something that automatically happens. Civil societies come about because people want them to. The Iron Lady, our host this evening, Dr. Sharon Anderson, is no exception of this quote. I have been an avid fan and follower of Dr. Sharon Anderson, and I have yet to meet someone like Dr. Anderson who is so passionate and dedicated on building civility, especially emotional civility, in a society that all too often seems tilted towards uncivil speech and actions. I've also had a chance to read a part of her newly launched book, Emotional Civility, and this reminds me very clearly of the powerful concept to not allow our emotions to control our speech or conduct, and reminds us very strongly the impact of emotional civility on our societies and communities. Keep up the great work, Dr. Anderson. You are a true inspiration to all of us. I am a firm believer that civility is significant and essential because it cements civilization, courtesy, common sense, and civility promotes meaningful relationships, communication, and cooperation. Just to quote R.J. Ingerson, true civilization is where every man and woman gives to every other every right that he or she claims for themselves. Like Dr. Sonia mentioned, treat others the way you want to be treated. I am also a firm believer in this. Advocating for emotional civility is more important today than ever before, as it is the foundation of anything that we want to accomplish. Once again, Dr. Anderson, thank you for giving me this opportunity to share some of my thoughts with everyone. And I truly, once again, appreciate this honor that you have bestowed upon me. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shaw. God bless you and congratulations to you. As I was preparing for the conference and praying about who God wanted me to recognize, certainly your name came into my spirit, but then the Sir Clyde Rivers, His Excellency Sir Clyde Rivers Emotional Civility Award came into my spirit. And God said that you would be the first honoree for that award. So we thank you for your selflessness. As you know, your daughter was one of our awardees on last year, and your family just stays in the fight for civility. So we thank God for you. We thank God for your family who is tireless in their efforts to see civility spread throughout the world. So thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking with you later on the program. Thank you. Thank you. Phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal awardees. For those that are listening, I hope that you don't take for granted the brilliance that is being laid before you as it relates to conversations about civility, efforts to ensure that civility is not just preached, but is lived throughout our globe. So again, thank you to those who have just received their awards. The final awardee, Her Excellency Denise Nkuzari, who is the former First Lady of Burundi, is the last honoree. And when, again, I was praying about who to pass awards to this year, and have certainly consulted with my mentor, as I was reading about Her Excellency Denise Nkurunziza, I was just struck by what she went through and how her life, unlike any other, really is an example of civility. Her Excellency is the former First Lady of the Republic of Burundi. She is the founder and the chair lady of the Benutu Foundation and was born in Muabe, the district of Ngozi province in the northern part of Burundi. She is the wife of the late former president of the Republic of Burundi, and joined the revolution movement and the National Council of the Defense of Democracy, Force for the Defense of Democracy, in April of 1995. When Reverend Denise, because she is a reverend, was 4 months pregnant, her husband had to flee into the bush. And I spoke with her today because it's 1 o'clock in the morning in Burundi and she couldn't get on. And she had to act as if really nothing was wrong. She said that one of her greatest moments and proudest moments as it related to emotional civility was one when her husband was threatened and he had to leave. She was left pregnant, but she had to go back and forth to work, take her children back and forth to school, and walk with her head held high. And so while she was dealing with what she was dealing with, standing as a first lady, dealing with the threats because of the government conflict, she had to do exactly what emotional civility suggests. And that is not to ignore your emotions, because emotional civility does not mean you ignore it. What it means is that you process it, you accept it, and then you make sure that you are not infecting someone if you're dealing with a negative emotion. And so Her Excellency is a demonstration of how to deal with pressure that I don't think many of us have ever dealt with, and to walk in the face of pressure and violence with her head held high. And so her second testimony, and the Spirit of God fell when she was talking to me, because the second testimony was she made a choice and she chose civility. She could have chosen to incite violence. She could have chosen to incite combat, because her view and her former husband's view was different from the view of the president that took over for her husband. But she did not. Because she cared about the youth, she cared about the children, and she cared about the people. And so Her Excellency Denise decided to choose civility. She chose to act with emotional civility. And even though she was hurt, even though she was lost, even though she was devastated, she put someone else's life before hers, the life of her people, the life of her country, the success and the next step of her country in front of how she was feeling. So if there is not a person in this world that's deserving of an emotional civility award, it is Her Excellency, Reverend Denise Nkurunziza. She is a testimony, and her life is a testimony to emotional civility throughout this world. And I know we all in our daily lives have experiences that cause us to often want to act out. But if Reverend Denise, Her Excellency, Reverend Denise, did not act out in a time when her country was facing a line of demarcation, do we choose peace or do we choose turmoil? Do we choose acting out on our emotion, or do we choose acting out on the will of God? Reverend Her Excellency Denise acted on the will of God. And as a result, Burundi is at peace, it is not at war. And so we thank God for her example. We thank God for a reminder that if we choose civility, sometimes that means that we put our emotions on the back burner so that someone else can live, so that someone else can flourish, so that someone else's life can be changed and renewed. So, for those who are listening, I ask that you help me just congratulate Dr. Denise. And we thank God for her excellency. And we know that she's coming to the United States. And hopefully, KCG and Dr. Sharon and Powers will be able to introduce you to her in person. So, with that, let's bring on all of the awardees. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. So the time is running late again. I want to thank you all for being with me, but I do want to ask a couple of questions and have a brief discussion before we leave. And one thing that I think is very important to reiterate, and it was something that Elia said, and that was civility has been often used as a weapon. And I know all of us have been working in the realm of civility, so we've always felt it. And a lot of times people don't want to hear it. Because it's been used as a weapon, and certainly here in the United States, as an African American, it sometimes can be a challenge because they feel that civility is used to silence you. So I'll start with you, Dr. Sonia, and if we could just go around and just talk about how do we begin to make sure that people understand that that's not what civility means. And how do we begin to get them to hear us when we start injecting civility into the conversation? Dr. Sonia? No, I'm mute.
Okay. I'm glad you asked me that because Sharon, my thing is, conversations leads back to everything. Conversation is what's going to change the world today. And in most cases, when people, when they're into these little different scenarios, like when we have protests, when we have all these things going on in the world today, some of this stuff could just be taken away or off the table if we just listen to what people have to say. Because when people start protesting, they're protesting for a reason. They're protesting because they've not been heard before. This is the way I'm going to get somebody's attention. So again, in order to understand a person's feelings, and keep in mind, again, as I said in the beginning, foundation is everything. It depends on how you were raised and what people put in you that's going to determine how you react later on in life. And until you decide that you want to be repaired, that you're broken, because first of all, you need to understand that there's an issue within you. And until you understand that, it's just going to continue to get deeper and deeper and deeper. But sometimes you see people and you see how they respond. I can recall when I was sitting in a meeting and I was going through my first divorce. And I had all these things on me, and it was the way that I responded. And the gentleman said, are you okay? And I said, well, I just saw something in work and, blah, blah, blah. He says, no, that's not what's bothering you. Mm-hmm. He could see that there was something deeper than what I was saying because he was listening. He was paying attention. He could see that. And, when you spend that much time around people, and even if you don't know them, but if you ask the questions to them, because you're just going to see, people are going to see you from the outside and assume what they see from the outside is what there is. But you need to start looking at people from the inside because you don't know what's going on in someone's life. So take the time to ask the questions. Take the time just to have that conversation. Are you okay? Because sometimes people will say, how you doing today? And you'll say, fine, they'll keep going. But that may be the day you decide you're going to jump off a bridge. But if someone actually takes the time to, are you sure everything's okay? If there's anything that I can do for you, let's get a cup of coffee. If you don't drink coffee, let's get a pop. Anything, but I'm just saying you need to take time with people to understand, because in order to bring back civility, you're going to have that dialogue with people. because right now everybody's in their own little world and everybody is already set in their mind. So we have to do a job of, transforming minds.
Yeah.
We have to go about changing minds, doing a shift paradigm. It's like it's time for something new. We can't continue on the path that we're going because right now we're headed for all of our demise. So in
That's right.
order to correct that, we need to have those tough, hard conversations.
That's great, and I think it really does speak to it brings us back to emotional civility
Right.
because we can't bring the larger issues into play if we don't confront some of the individual issues,
Right.
and if we ignore the individual issues, even down to what you said. Okay, if I'm in a global meeting, we don't think about, okay, what is the person in the boardroom dealing with, but if they are dealing with something emotionally,
Hmm.
um, it could potentially prevent us from having a dialogue to create change or advancement simply because we're not recognizing that there is an individual issue. Now, that doesn't mean that we will always get into someone's personal business, but understanding how people communicate, why they might be resistant to an issue is important so that when we begin the dialogue, we're approaching it the right way. So that was an important point. And Dr. Shaw, I'd love you to jump in because you have done this on an international platform. And so one of the things that I know we're dealing with ICGC, and I'm on the gender equality team with your daughter, is if we're dealing with gender equality, how do we introduce gender equality to the African diaspora when we know that they don't necessarily treat women equally? So we can't just come in as a Western European country and say, you got to do it this way. Because if they do, then they start with
Yes.
their hands over their ears, because we're not recognizing who they are, right? Where they've come from, what might have caused their way of thinking. And so tell us, Dr. Shaw, how can we begin to bridge these gaps? And how do we do better from an emotional civilities perspective in making sure that people hear us when we say civility is important?
Thank you, Dr. Sharon Anderson. In fact, this evening, very interestingly, I was talking to my daughter and sharing some of my thoughts with her. And she told me very, very clearly, Dad, one thing you must understand is that one shoe size does not fit all.
That's right.
For every problem, for every country, for every society, there has to be a different solution to address the same problem.
That's right.
And we were arguing on that why can't it be the same? But nevertheless, I think it's very, very important when we talk about emotional civility, because I think it's very, very critical today than ever before for people to understand, and especially for us who are advocates, to understand what men and women want. And for me, in promoting civility, communication is the key to success. Like Dr. Robinson mentioned, we need to listen. We need to understand their feelings and challenges. Then only we will be able to address the issues and the problems that are there forthwith. And talking about politicians, talking about government agencies, this has been really a big challenge, and they need a different approach. And the approach with politicians and working with government agencies, I don't know if Dr. Ilya agrees, but you need a lot of persistence and persuasion. And like the saying, that many a time you may have a headache, all you need to do is to remove the thorn from the foot, and the headache disappears automatically.
Yes.
Amen.
So,
Amen.
these are some of the simple principles of really addressing the core of civility. Back
Yes.
to you, Dr. Anderson.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And so, Dr. Elliott, you from FBI, I'm giving you a title today.
I know.
FBI, FBI. I mean, and then the work that you're doing is so important. So we talked a little bit about it in the bio, but just picking up from what Dr. Shaw talked about in exposing right people to government, and then exposing politicians to their entire constituency, and then raising up those that are coming behind those that are in office to be able to have meaningful dialogues. Tell us about your work and how we communicate civility in a better way.
Right. ICG strives for that day when every elected official eagerly models civil dialogue with their constituents in their campaigns and on the floor in the House of the Senate. I mean, that's the work we do when we walk the halls of Congress, when we take constituents to meet their congressional. We put a face to a face and a person to a person instead of just this the media driven, what we believe government is. And that helps a lot. And that does change the conversation, and it changes people when they go back to their community after they have that one-on-one. I agree with everything that Dr. Robinson said, and of course, Dr. Shaw. And in my work, not only with local government, federal government, and my work in DC, but just my work with diversity and inclusion when I'm doing trainings and I'm in corporate trainings or even in just organizational training. I think in the past 2 years, I have been astounded by the outcome of those conversations with those people in those rooms. And all it took was creating a safe space for people to share thoughts, questions, and answers, even if it got, even if there was passion behind that, and even if it ignited other things, it allowed everyone to feel comfortable in addressing things that they don't normally address. As everyone has said, we do. And Dr. Robinson has spoken. We do. We go through life and we offer a lot of really quick, nice falsities. How are you? I'm fine. Although I am on the way to jump off the bridge, I'm fine. Right. Thank you for asking. Right. and then that's really what people think civility is.
That's right.
And so I think all of us out there really saying, no, civility is ugly sometimes. It's uncomfortable sometimes. It's okay. Yes. And it's that we see each other, that we really see and hear each other. That's what we're going for. And that includes all of us. And it takes all of us here and then all of our spheres of influence and everyone. And I do believe that when I speak about civility, even to a room of disgruntled folks, and I start speaking about how we can use this as a superpower, and I think we're thinking about it all wrong, it changes not only what's happening in that room, but I know for a fact that they leave that room and it starts to filter out. And I get the emails and I get calls to say, hey, I used civility as a superpower today. It felt really awkward, but I did it. And it changed the tide. And I think all we can do is throw that one starfish back into the ocean at a time.
That's it. Yes, I absolutely agree. And that's, what everybody, all the work that's being done through ICGC, certainly Dr. Rivers as our leader on that platform, Dr. Shaw, what you're doing with ICG. I mean, some people take for granted what we're doing, and that's okay, right? And that's okay. But one conversation at a time, right, Dr. Sonia? Yeah. One meeting at a time, one Zoom at a time, one conference, right? People might say, why are you doing this? I just preached a conference and I came back to do this because to me, this matters. If you plant that seed, God will water it. And we all on this line truly believe that God will get the glory. Amen. God will get the glory. It is he who said that in Leviticus, that the golden rule is that we have to treat everyone the way we would want to be treated. And that was in the midst of turmoil, right? They were different races and different opinions, and people were treating people differently. And God said, no, this is not how we're going to do this. And so God created the world. God created us as people. Every single religion has the same golden rule. There is not one religion that says that it's okay to treat someone bad. Whether it's by honoring who Jesus is, and I'm Christian, so that's what I do. Whether you're Hindu, whatever religion you are, every religion talks about the golden rule in one way or another, and that's treating someone the way that they would want to be treated, with respect. And so whether we do it one conference at a time, one conversation at a time, one board meeting at a time, the more we talk about it, as you said, Ellie, and as everyone said, people do stop, right? Some get a little resistance to it because of the history of civility in different areas. But then they stop when they see that it's coming from your heart, when they see that you really do care about wanting to ensure that people are fed, and that people are clothed, and that people have homes, and that people get equity. And that's what civility is about. It's not treating people in an inequitable manner. I want to read just real quickly a piece from my book, because I want to make sure I get it right. But in chapter 19, get the book. There are consequences of emotional incivility. Mm-hmm. And what I said in this book is that when we fail to act with emotional civility, creativity suffers. Performance and team spirit deteriorates. Consumers turn away. It's expensive to undo relationships in the boardroom and in business when you don't treat someone with civility. If you treat someone, I'll give you a brief testimony. I was leaving my hotel room and on yesterday, and I called an Uber to get to the airport. The gentleman drove up, and he couldn't drive, or did not drive, right in front of the door. I wasn't looking to the left, but there was something that was blocking the path of the car. But I do have a little bit of a bad leg, and I had a really heavy bag. And so I kind of motioned him to, kind of come on up. And he started yelling at me out of the window about why I couldn't walk to him to bring my bag to get into the Uber. And I said, "I'm sorry, my leg hurts." And his response was, "Well, you got down here, didn't you?" And he pulled off. Now, that's expensive for him, right? Because he didn't get that Uber ride, and he's about to get a bad report from Uber. But incivility turns, right? It's expensive. So for those of us who are listening on the line, who might be business people and training business people, incivility is expensive if you just speak your mind out of emotion because you're having a bad day. Mood matters. Outcome and process matter. Are opinions requested and given serious consideration if there's a workplace issue? Are your decision-making processes transparent so people can feel that they're being treated civilly? Are leaders actively listening to concerns and empathizing with their point of view? I imagine your ideal self. What's your ideal self in dealing with emotional civility? We all have bad days, and that's just life. But imagine your ideal self when my words or your words come in someone's mind when they're about to act out of emotion, and you say emotional civility.
I always say in my head, I wanted to say this, I'm sorry, but I always say in my head, oh, react like you're the executive director of the Institute for Civility and Government and you're being videotaped.
There you go.
And if ever something else comes into my mind, I mean, because we all have it. I mean, it's human instinct. I mean, you want to react. You react. We do. And I take a breath and I think, practice what you preach. What would you do as the executive director? Exactly. And really, I mean, it slows my breathing, and I actually am able to refocus and see what this person needs.
Absolutely. And that's, for Christians, we say, what would Jesus do? We wore an armband. But I do, in my mind, after I wrote this book, I start saying, emotional civility.
Absolutely.
Emotional civility. And the book was written not because, I was perfect.
Absolutely.
In fact, the book was written because I was less than perfect in always acting the way that I believe we should act on our emotions. And it forced me to take a look at, as a businesswoman, as a pastor, as a leader in the space of an ambassador for civility, what work do we have to do as individuals to ensure that we're being that example? And I think, Dr. Shaw, you were about to say something. No, you good? Dr. Sonia?
Well, my take on it is, in my younger days, I may have gone down that path, but over time, I realized it's a lot of hard work to take back something that you said.
That's good.
So that's what I look at first before I say anything.
That part right there may be the truest thing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then, once you get a certain place,
Mm-hmm.
people tend to follow you.
That's right.
That's
And
right.
they look at, are you practicing what you're preaching?
That's right.
So if you're not, are they going to continue to listen to you? No. So I take that few minutes, or either I go into the ladies' room, into a bathroom stall, and I sit there and I have to have this conversation.
Yes.
God, you need to work with me right about now because I'm about ready to say this. But
Yes.
no, I always
Please let me be my best self when I walk out of this stall.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that just works so much better for me because I've learned that over time. I mean, you can't take words back once they've been said.
I think this conversation is so important, and that we're leaving our viewers and in each other with this, because we are human.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we are learning as we walk. And this work not only is the work that we exhibit out into the community, it is our work within ourselves.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And you have to start with yourself.
You have to.
That's right.
That's what it's about.
You
That's
have to
right.
work on yourself first before you can help someone else.
That's what emotional civility is about. That's what the book is about. So to pick up on what you just said, suggestions on practicing emotional civility, exactly what Dr. Sonia said. If you're hit with something, everyone said, just kind of walk away, come back. But you have to choose to see yourself great. A lot of times the emotional incivility comes from feeling less than, or, again, an emotion that you haven't necessarily reconciled with. You don't have to understand, and you don't have to always respond, right? So just like you said, sometimes you'll hear something, your visceral reaction is to act in one way. But if you step away for a moment, go to the bathroom stall, say, I'll call you back, but not responding immediately helps you contain your emotion and actually have it, and I'll just say, sift through and go through your spirit, through the Holy Ghost, as opposed to responding from your head, and not from your fleshly heart. Know your worth, choose to cultivate peace. It is critical to walk consistently in emotional civility, to constantly assess and adjust your perspective, to maintain peace and to manifest peace and civility and attitude and discourse. Don't rush to judgment before you know all the facts, right? Sometimes we speak before we actually know all the facts. And then do you stereotype? Do you stereotype your reaction to people based on what you've heard? And, that's, again, crossing race boundaries, gender boundaries, but it happens everywhere. And then do a self-evaluation, and then we'll close and just have everyone give a last word. But this is critically important, and really how I end my book. Self-care is critical. I have found myself failing to act with emotional civility when I did not care for myself. When I was grieving the loss of my father, didn't always respond in the business realm because I was grieving and not managing the grief. When my mother passed, same thing, not always responding, not crazy, but just not my best self. So self-care is important. When we're tired, someone will say hangry, but that's when those things come out. And to Dr. Sonia's point again, you can't unring a bell. So once the bell is rung and once you've stepped over the line, then you have to do repair. And yes, God is a God of grace, and He is a God of mercy. But if we're advancing this critical conversation, and conversations matter, then making sure that you're caring for yourself so the incidents of incivility are less is very, very important. So, what are your weaknesses? Come to terms with them. Are you willing to accept that you're not perfect? And then if you, because that's one of the other self-care issues, when you just said, right, I'm okay, and then you're on your way to jump off the bridge, are you willing to stop for a minute and say, I need the attention? If you know, and again, we're all leaders, so oftentimes we're pulled on all of the time. We're called upon to always practice civility. And so when we need help, where do we go? Are we willing to say, today is a bad day, today is a weekday, and then make sure that you take time to respond to that? Chaos will happen, but how we respond to it is what enhances or threatens our peace. So know where you are and truly study where you are. Emotional civility demands, it demands that you do a self-examination. Detach from social media, take a walk, change your eating habits, take care of yourself. And as you're doing that, thinking before speaking, focusing on facts rather than beliefs and opinions, focusing on the common good rather than individuals' agendas, disagreeing with others respectfully, being open to others without hostility, and being respectful of diverse views and groups will become part of who you are and not an exception to your walk. So I thank you, and I'd like each one of you to give our viewers one last piece of brilliance, and then we'll close. But I do honor each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart for Her Excellence Denise from Burundi. We thank God for her and the example. Continue all to be great. You all are champions in my book. And Dr. Rivers, again, as he's in Ethiopia, would have been here with us as well, but he told me to offer his congratulations to all of you, and particularly to you, Dr. Shaw, for having the first award in his name. So once again, thank you. I'd like each one of you to close us out, and I'll start with you, Dr. Sonia.
Okay. I just want to say this, and it gets back to communication again. I was in conversation the early part of the week with the president of Haiti, and I was inviting him to the show. And and it was a little tough trying to understand the dialect. But I sat there, and because he wanted to talk verbally on the phone because he wanted to give me some insight. I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm listening to him on the phone, and I'm asking questions. And he has sent over his obituary, his biography, and everything. And then he sent over his website. You know what the turning point in that conversation was? When I could give him the top 5 bullet points that was important to him. And he said, you actually read it. And I'm like, yeah, I did. By the time we were off the call, he sent me a picture. It was a video of him in the kitchen cooking.
Amen.
And I'm like, when you actually take the time to listen to people and ask them the questions to understand, and and they're willing and open to share. And he came back and said, Congress for Global Communication, he says, I can really see us doing great things together. I want to do a summit. I know all the leaders. I can give you this, I can give you that. I'm like, hold up, we gonna work this out. But it was just so amazing what happens when you actually take the time to listen to people. He talked about all the issues that were going on over in Haiti. All the murders, all the kidnappings, all the all this uncivil stuff that he wants to bring some peace, and it's like, I need your help in order to get this done. And the platform that you guys are doing, he says, I can see it happening, I can see it helping. And I'm like, and that's why we're here. Our thing is, we want to take this around the world and do exactly what you're saying. We have things going we have things going on in the States. We have things going on in other parts of the country. Everything is the same. It's just we approach them differently. And if we could come up with a way to bring some common ground to it, we can make some impact with this. So I just want to say, It's time out for civility. We need to have people to understand and do a mindset change here. You know, when God put you here, that is not the way He put you here. He put you here in His image. So we have to align His image with what you're doing to get you on course as to where you need to be.
That's right.
So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be as part of your platform this evening. Thank you for recognizing me with the award. I love you. Congratulations to everyone, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Ilya?
Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. Thanks, Sonia, for making me follow that. Can I just say everything she said? You know, I wake up every morning wanting to change the world and also enjoy the world. And some days that's easier than others.
Yes.
You know, I'm from Syria, so you know, I am in constant mind of war. And then when things happen like Ukraine, that it's kind of a trigger for me, and I'm right there. And I often feel that my work in civility, even though it is so important, I sometimes feel like, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough for the world? Am I doing enough for what is happening in my own country, in other countries that are also ravaged with unlimited things that, you know? And so how I recenter myself and how I begin discussions with everyone that it may be a naysayer of civility, because I'm often asked, as I'm sure you all are, does it work?
Right.
Why do you do that? Are you, you know, especially with Congress, you know, does it make a difference? How do they even talk to you? And all of those answers are a resounding yes, 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 because there is no other way but to move forward in civility and in kindness and in greatness as humans, and as we are living all on this planet in community, no matter how far or wide we are. So thank you for this day. This day will always be a celebrated reminder, and I will be a wonderful steward of it each year as this date happens. And I look forward to seeing you all again. And I just want to tell you what a pleasure it's been being in the company of all of you, and how I admire all of you. And I'm just thankful to be here on this stage with you. And Dr. Sharon, of course, beyond words, you know all the words I have for you already. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Dr. Shaw?
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Sharon. My daughter always tells me that you are a cool dad. You never get angry, you never get annoyed, you
Those are-
always smile, and many a time you don't respond whenever you see anger or you see something coming your way. And what is your secret? And I told her that over the years, you learn how to deal with people, how to communicate with them. And in the kind of work that we do in promoting civility and other things, if you really don't have that positive attitude, you will never succeed. And she also asked me that in the work that you do in promoting civility and other things, what is your measure of success? And I always tell her that even if I get 2 out of 10 people to change in what I am propagating or advocating for, I think I am a winner. And that is so, so true. And that is my measure of success.
Yeah.
Uh,
Amen.
thank, thank you very much, Dr. Sharon Anderson, for hosting us in the second annual Civility Conference. It's really been a pleasure being here, sharing the platform with Ilya and, of course, my very good friend Sonia. And thank you for honoring all of us. And this really means a lot to us.
Amen.
Carry on promoting emotional civility. And God bless you, Dr. Sharon Anderson, for the great work that you have been doing. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. I'll just leave you with this. The golden rule is the principle of treating others as you want to be treated. It is a maxim that is found in most religions and cultures. It can be considered an ethic or reciprocity. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you is the idea, also called the law of reciprocity. That may be the most universally applauded moral principle on earth. One area of everyday life in which to practice emotional civility is that in our conversation. A civil discussion is the free and respectful exchange of diverse ideas. That does not mean that we have to always agree, but it does mean we have to agree respectfully. To paraphrase Justice Stewart, some people say, I'm not sure what civility is, but I know it when I see it. And I certainly saw it on display here. So thank you all for the great work that you do. Thank you all for the great work that you've done. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you as we go forward in advancing civility for all. Congratulations to you all, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good
Good
night.
Good
night.
night.